the first news article this week we want to talk about is, the Age of Ultron trailer, the new one. I guess we'll go ahead and start talking about that. I don't have a lot to say. It's kind of more of the same. I feel like and when I say more of the same, it's not like they showed us a bunch of the same scenes. It's kind of just new scenes, but I don't feel like or new angles of some other scenes that we saw already.
How
And
many trailers are we going to get about the same thing until we all join hands around the world? Annoys me.
I kind of think that the big thing that we got out of this one is more of a sense of maybe what the tone of the film is going to be. I think this is going to be a pretty heavy movie.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And I feel like that. I don't feel like we've learned anything about this movie that tells us that it's going to be more heavy than we already knew it was. I mean, I feel like taking that Disney song "Got No Strings" and turning it on its head tells you right there that it's kind of dashing some of your childhood expectations. And am I stepping on what you were saying? I don't know.
No, not at all. But I do think that just knowing thematically some of what they're dealing with, you can already get a sense of how much more of a weighty film it's going to be, even just beyond what the tone of the thing is. You know what I mean? I mean, the fact that it's Tony Stark builds a thing that he relies on really hard. You know, it's your classic science fiction story of we rely too much on technology and then we let it go too far, and then it kind of starts to take over. It's about hubris. I think we already know enough about what the story is to say that it certainly is thematically a weightier thing than Avengers, which is kind of just your classic alien invasion story with a little bit of weighty stuff with Loki, just with the idea of you're all puppets of your government and you don't even know it. And I also think that given that the whole puppet thing with Ultron, I think that we're taking some things from that first movie and going farther with them and doing more interesting things. So I think that it is in a moving in a direction with those ideas from the first movie and not just a disconnected other thing with the same characters. And that's kind of the thing I'm most excited about is I think it's actually going to build on things both from Avengers and from Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think this movie, not just from the last movie, I feel like we've been building to this thematic sort of conclusion in some of the more recent Marvel movies. Captain America was a lot about using technology to try to sort of control people, and it's all about sort of talking about NSA surveillance and topical issues and how technology is used to sort of restrict people's lives and whether or not that's freedom or fear and what are the lines between those two things. And I'm really excited to see what Whedon does with all those things. I feel like this is probably going to be the Empire Strikes Back kind of movie for the Avengers or Marvel Universe. I'm really excited to see what happens with Hulk specifically because Bruce Banner and the technology kind of thing. I'm a big Hulk fan. So I'm just kind of excited to see what they do thematically with him because he's kind of the guy that's been screwed over more than anyone else with meddling with science and technology. This is kind of like what his character is all about. I imagine there's a lot of cool character places to go with him based on what the kind of tone and message of the movie seems to be based on the trailers.
Well, I'm excited for more further paralleling between Bruce Banner and Tony Stark. That was one of the things I latched onto really hard with the first one, and I enjoyed the idea of those characters kind of being friends and they're kind of kindred spirits in certain ways. But then, one of them, because of what he did to himself, is a lot more humble than the other one. And I think that in a lot of ways, this is going to be kind of Tony Stark for the first time going through what Bruce Banner did with the Hulk in a way, and then seeing a giant showdown between them, I think, is really exciting and fascinating. I mean, the Hulkbuster thing in the comics is kind of like a big thing people love now. It's almost kind of a classic image at this point. I don't know if I could go that far, but maybe.
It's a popular
And
image. You're right.
it's a popular image, and so to take that really kind of exciting fan thing. Hey, we get to see these two characters fight, but then to put that emotional stuff behind it and to have Tony Stark, I would argue just from what we know so far, maybe in a way kind of becoming the new Bruce Banner.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm kind of excited to see there's a lot of stuff in the trailers paralleling, and this was kind of in the first movie when me and you, Captain Logan, did the commentary on the first Avengers movie. The sort of subtle parallels between Black Widow and Hulk's character, where they're two characters that can't really ever show themselves to the world because they got to keep all of the pain and suffering they have inside them at bay. And I feel like in both trailers so far, we've seen little snippets of them interacting, and I'm going to be interested to see how she factors into this thematically, and especially given the great stuff that was done in her in Winter Soldier, she became much more of an interesting character to me in that movie. I'm very excited to see where they go with her moving forward.
Everything I'm seeing just seems really natural, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
she with the thematic stuff that they're building with Ultron, and the idea of you've all been puppets and you don't even realize it, and again that building a little bit from some of what Loki was touting up in Avengers. She is, and we've talked about this before, she is the perfect character to kind of be at the forefront. I'm glad that they're giving her and Hawkeye a lot of screen time in the trailers to tell you, yes, you're actually going to get to see these characters fleshed out more. Hopefully we really do, but I think that they're promising us that in the trailers, and that's nice. I don't remember with the first trailer if we actually saw that in any cuts into the Hulkbuster armor with Tony Stark.
Yes.
I didn't see. I couldn't remember, but this time around, when I saw it and actually noticed it, I went, "Oh, good! I know for sure that Tony Stark is actually driving the Hulkbuster armor, and that it's not part of Ultron." Because
okay, yes,
like, that was a thing that I was kind of wondering about before, because Ultron seems like an evolution of the Iron Man suits and the AI, and I still think probably the Jarvis AI. And so when we first saw that, I kind of couldn't be sure if we were seeing Ultron or Tony Stark fighting Hulk. So I'm kind of more excited now because I know it's Tony Stark.
Yes, you're right. There were no shots of showing the HUD of Tony Stark in the Hulkbuster armor in the first trailer. I just thought you meant seeing the Hulkbuster armor fighting Hulk in general.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about the
so this was the first time we confirmed that it was Tony Stark. You're right.
I don't know if anybody else was questioning that, but that was the thing that was the thing I was kind of wondering about. And I mean, wouldn't have a problem with it. I kind of like the idea
do too.
On using not just himself, but a bunch of Tony's other armor. Just kind of further that whole thing. Yeah, I have control of everything Tony Stark built. He because it's like, you take all that technology and you say maybe Tony Stark shouldn't have ever built any of this. Maybe he's made the world a lot worse of a place by ever even getting started with it.
Yeah, and that's why at the end of the third Iron Man movie, he blew them all up.
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the things that is sort of irritating me right now thinking about this movie, and this is not a problem with the trailers or anything, is just that with all of the news that keeps coming out from Marvel Studios, and now knowing all the movies that they're doing all the way through, what, Dan, like 2020?
Yeah, something like that.
Vision.
I am having a vision, but I am having a really hard time thinking about this movie and not thinking about all of the stuff after it. I feel like, in a weird way, I feel like this movie's already happened.
Yeah.
And I know that's really weird because we haven't seen it yet, but I don't like knowing, and I've said this before, but I feel the need to reiterate it right now with this trailer. I'm watching this trailer and I'm like, I should be where I was with Winter Soldier, where I had no idea what was going to happen at the end of Winter Soldier. I had no idea, spoiler alert, that S.H.I.E.L.D. was going to be completely dismantled at the end of that, and that it was going to be a Hydra thing and all of that, and it changed. It did what all the Marvel events always say they're going to do. It changed the face of the Marvel universe. and then I get to now, and I just feel like with Phase 2 they didn't spill too many beans, and I feel like the beans are all over the floor right now, and it's kind of driving me crazy.
It's good imagery right there.
Because I'm like, well, I know now that we're getting Civil War. I know that we're doing Infinity War. I know about all these other characters that are getting their own solo films, and my mind is too many years in the future. I feel like this movie writes itself. I feel like I could kind of tell you where it's all going and what's going to be at the end of it, because I know what's coming after. I sure hope we don't do another thing like we did toward the end of Avengers, where you have a character who may or may not get killed, but they're not going to, just because we know everybody survives pretty much. I'm just saying.
The only thing I would say is we really don't know what's going to happen with Vision, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver. They're kind of a question mark up in the air at this point.
Yeah, but importantly, we
I
also
have
haven't
a
seen
feeling
them
they're
yet, so I don't.
probably
Yeah.
well, yeah, that's the thing. I'm going to this movie specifically to be surprised by those characters because being a fan of 70s Avengers comics, I like those characters a lot. I'm really excited to see what kind of characterizations they have, how they play into the story, if they're Inhumans, how they explain their powers. Because there was little snippets at some of the ends of the post credit sequence. I think it was the Winter Soldier post credit sequence where we saw Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. I'm really excited to see how they factor into this story and what happens with the Avengers because there's a lot of rumors like maybe they'll be split into two teams. There'll be a Cap and an Iron Man team leading up to the Civil War movie eventually. I don't know. I think there's enough question marks for me personally to be excited moving forward.
I think this is going to be a springboard into the Civil War thing
It is.
because they say something in the trailer about kind of a persecution against them, and I mean their existence in this universe has to be for the Civil War, so that you can have a reason to have like who's it, the registration blah blah blah.
Registration Act,
Well,
Superhuman
and I,
Registration Act.
and I'm with you. I'm not saying that I'm not excited or that too much has been blown, and I think they're doing a good job of not telling us too much in the trailers. But I can't get too excited about the characters we haven't seen yet because, the characters that I didn't know very much about when we went into Avengers didn't get all that much to do in Avengers, and the characters and those characters now it looks like this is going to be sort of their movie. So I'm expecting Scarlet Witch and Vision and Quicksilver to be very much in the background.
And I'm really excited to see what they do with Hawkeye in this movie because he's
Me
one
too.
of my favorite Avengers, and the fact that he was sort of sidelined or brainwashed for most of the first movie makes me excited going into this one, seeing how they'll play with him and Black Widow's relationship, what's going on with them. What kind of character he has because we haven't really all defined Hawkeye in this universe yet, other than saying he's mildly sarcastic like he is in the comics.
Yeah, the one thing about Winter Soldier, and I just don't know how you would fit him in, is that he felt weirdly absent.
I agree. That was my big criticism of that movie is that he wasn't in it because he's the one big Shield agent that was absent.
Yeah, and it's like, where what? He must have just been eating shawarma someplace.
Yeah,
He was
exactly.
on
He was, well, yeah, to Mars or something.
He was busy wearing green and fighting a two-toned Cyclopean bad
No,
guy.
you're thinking of a totally different thing, Vince. No, keep up. You just get the CW out of your head for a minute, and then here in a little bit we'll get back to it, okay?
Oh, okay.
But Dan, would you not agree with me though? If and I hear what you're saying, I understand why you're saying that about Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch and Vision, and I am excited to see Vision realize because that's a character I like a lot.
Oh yeah.
But Dan, would you agree with me that I kind of wish we didn't know about Civil War yet? I kind of wish the end credits or right before the credits in this movie would be where we found out about that.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
I just wish I hadn't heard about it yet. That's all.
no, that's completely fair. Especially since they're bringing in another major Avenger, Black Panther, going into Civil War. And we already know that's happening. We know who's been cast. I can see why you might be a little bit like, oh, I wish we could have found that out later. Because I would imagine Black Panther will probably be in the post-credits sequence for Avengers 2. Because what's the next Marvel movie we're getting date-wise after Avengers 2?
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man. Okay, so after Ant-Man, I guess.
And I think it's fair to note that this isn't that different from how they've handled things before. I guess. I mean, we've always kind of known what the roster of movies was going to be.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is that. I think before labeling, giving the movies subtitles didn't tell you too much about what the movies were going to about. With Thor: The Dark World, what does that mean? Ragnarok? Well, I can kind of tell you some things about what's going to be in that movie because I've read Simonson. But Civil War. Okay, well, everybody knows exactly what that is. But then like Winter Soldier, I think people probably thought they knew what was going to be in that movie, but So now Civil War could go in a totally different direction than anybody expects it to. But we already know because they've told us that it's going to be Tony Stark versus Steve Rogers, just like it was in the comics, and then they can do whatever they want to after that. But I just feel like before I think we were getting titles of things and we got like some details just about what characters were going to be used, but I don't feel like we got as much plot stuff as they've been giving us lately.
Do you feel like at the end of Civil War, we're going to get the ultimate end for Captain America that happened in the comic book Civil War?
No, I don't. I would be very surprised if they went there. Although that would be a good way to write him out, because Chris Evans famously wants to start directing and doesn't want to play the character forever, or at least doesn't want to be have to like star in all these movies. But a lot of people think that they'll take him and kind of kick him upstairs and have him be have a desk job or something. But I could see them killing him off. If they did that, it would be really nice to. It'd be really nice to believe that they would actually keep him dead, but they made a whole TV show to bring back a minor character. So
I'd rather than
I would imagine what they'll probably do with Steve Rogers is either kill him off or make him director of S.H.I.E.L.D. like they did in the comics briefly when Bucky Cap was still going on and Steve Rogers had come back to life and they didn't want to put him in the costume again yet in the comics. I would imagine they'll probably make him director of S.H.I.E.L.D. or just straight up kill him. I hope that they keep Chris Evans around long enough for Infinity War so that we can have that scene where Captain America alone stands against Thanos when everyone else is either dead or knocked out or whatever, and he's the last person. Because that's one of my favorite scenes from that comic book. It's awesome.